Hello, welcome to FilmDirt. Let's round off this Omen discussion with the final conflict. Just to declare once again, I'm not a religious expert, so I'm not going to be analysing any religious subtexts or scriptures or anything like that. I'm not going to waste anyone's time with my uneducated drivel. Plenty of forums online where someone will be more than happy to have a discussion with you on that. And actually, when I last revisited these films, which was over lockdown, I thought that the third film seemed to generate more discussion than the other two. Quite vague here and there in its story aspects and raises a lot of curiosity. So I love the first scene here where it shows they're recovering items from the fire at the end of the second movie that claimed the entire Thorn Museum. We've got the 7 Daggers of Megiddo in an auction house. They seem to have been recovered from the ruins and given to someone who doesn't know quite what they are, and he sold them to a pawn shop. They've switched hands a few times here by people that don't really know what they are until this man actually reads up on what they are and seems to have very generously handed them over to a priest. So they've gone from Chicago back to England, end up back in Italy, where they're now in the hands of DiCarlo and his monks. This is where I've got a few questions, where I'm wondering if they actually understand what the purpose of the daggers are. DiCarlo has handed the daggers out, 7 daggers to all 7 monks. And that's not how Bugenhagen originally said they were supposed to be used. He specifically said in the first movie that to properly kill the evil spirit, all 7 daggers should be used at the same time, with the first stab to form the centre of the cross, and then the others should radiate outwards, south, north, east and west, I believe, to form a cross in the body. So this is a very grim discussion already so early in this review. So handing all 7 out separately so they could all take one stab at Damien if they're lucky, that doesn't work, does it? That's going to just kill Damien. That's not going to kill the Antichrist. Maybe at this point that's the best they're going to hope for. Maybe they're accepting that he's quite powerful, and not only that, he's got lots of other demonic people around him as helpers. They may not know who they all are, so that will be difficult for a priest to get even as close as they need to be. So this part of the story is curious for me, but I'm sure if you do kill Damien, that puts a stop to him for now, and you live to fight another day and leave it to another generation to try and actually kill the Antichrist himself, whatever body his spirit may be in at the time. So again, let's just touch on the actors here while the daggers are in DiCarlo's possession. He's played by Rossano Brazzi, who is a very prolific actor in Italian cinema. I think he does really well here, really convincing. He looks to me like a priest that is very driven and understands the weight of the danger presented here. And Sam Neill as well, playing Damien this time. Sam Neill is a legend anyway, and I read that this was his first feature. He's got quite a few credits here in Australian and New Zealand TV shows and TV movies. So if this is his first feature film, they've managed to get a fantastic actor. Probably not commanding as much of a fee this time, because I think each of the 3 films have had a reduced budget. And also director Graham Baker, this was his first feature as well. And he went on to direct many episodes of Alien Nation. So a few people here possibly just starting out. And the producer, Harvey Bernhard, has been quite shrewd here in getting round a reduced budget from Fox. Whilst the film at times does look a little bit cheaper. A few scenes do look televisual and very flat. I don't really think that's reflected in the cast, where I think there's some really good acting here. And just to mention Sam Neill again, I think that's inspired casting. There is a resemblance, isn't there, between all three actors in these films. They could be possibly the same person. And Sam Neill's character here is quite calm, but you can see behind the eyes there is an underlying menace there. So in the next few scenes at Thorn Enterprises, I love that we're still on the famine topic. They're not giving up, are they? They're producing relief aid for lesser nations and often competing with the Red Cross. But are they providing relief or are they controlling famine? And also in these scenes here, I'm wondering if his assistant, Dean, is he aware of who Damien is? Because he does mention Bible passages and the beast not being the one that loses this time, but the Nazarene will be the loser. The Nazarene being the Christ child in this film, who somehow they know that the second coming is coming. So I don't really know how some constellations meeting being the sign of the second coming could be plausible, even if you don't fully understand it. So the first death of the current US ambassador to Great Britain is an absolute shocker, isn't it? Blowing his own brains out while the group of people come in to watch him do it. That's just sick, isn't it? But funny, in a weird sort of way. I read that there was supposed to be a visual effect overlaid on his reflection where he was horrified at something, of a skull to signify his death, but it was actually supposed to be a skull of a jackal, a wild dog that apparently Damien was born from. So I'm wondering why they didn't use it, maybe didn't look real enough. And I think without it was fine. He's seeing something in his mind that we're not seeing. And it's just a shame this death is so early in the film, because this is the main event in my eyes, and all the other deaths are not at this shocking level. So Damien is being enticed into an interview and they develop a relationship. My limited knowledge of the devil is all about desire and passion being the main draw to Satanism. And Sam Neill is an attractive man here in his mid-30s, is it 33, 34 here? So it's easy to see why a female reporter would find him attractive. And not only that, he's powerful, he's in a very senior position, and there may be some knowledge that he's about to be offered the post of the US ambassador. And the next death in the TV studio is also horrific, of him wrapped in molten plastic, was he? And again, he's trying to slay Damien with just one dagger. Do they understand what they need to do? It's already raising quite a few questions. And the problem with that is that now Damien's got one dagger. So already it's not possible to use all of the daggers all at once. This Christ statue at his house is really creepy. It's an almost backward, reversed version, isn't it? It's really twisted. And now because he's older, we're starting to see more of the demonic personality. With him being a child, you don't really get to see the actual character. In the first film, he was more of a bystander, of course, because he was a toddler. And now, as an adult, he's making his own decisions. And we're seeing images like this. And then we get to the infamous fox hunting scene. An old-time tradition, which I'm glad to say has now been outlawed in the UK. And it introduces us again to a lot more dogs this time. And I did mention in my review of the first film that they did have trouble getting a performance out of the Rottweilers there, because they're all good boys. And if a dog is too docile, you're really limited in the type of performance you can get from them. In the first film, I think they just about managed to get a few shots, mainly at the graveyard scene. I think you've got to have some sausages or something in your pockets. and a few split seconds of the dogs baring their teeth or going for you, I think was the best they could get. And in this film, again, I don't think any of these dogs look that vicious in Brother Simeon's death scene. And the actor Richard Oldfield, he does his best here, even though the dogs are mainly attacking him out of shot. When the reporter, Kate Reynolds, finally discovers the realisation of who Damien is from DiCarlo, the full horror is yet to come, because to make sure you stop the second coming of Christ, you kill all of the babies born at that certain time. And that's a pretty thorough way of doing it. And I'm not liking some of the acting in the following scenes where they're carrying out the murders. You've got a very strange scene in a christening where the priest is doing something off camera and you see the mother looking shocked. The Boy Scouts turning up at people's houses looking to do a good deed. They were probably limited to how much horror they could show in a movie. They're killing all the babies. So how do you show that? That's up to the writer and the director to come up with something creative. And the death of Dean and his child with the iron, it's not a good scene. I was wondering earlier if Dean was aware, and it seems like he was just going along with it like it was his job, until he was told to kill his own child, and suddenly he's against it. And here it seems to be DiCarlo as the last man standing. They've gone from 7 to 1. And this is the point in the film where I did note that there was a lot of discussion and quite a few questions asked on exactly what happens here. The way I see it is, like I said at the top of this review, I think they've abandoned the correct way to kill the Antichrist. All they're going to aim for now is just to kill Damien, leaving it all to happen all over again. So he only gets one dagger, stabbed in the back by Kate Reynolds, which was DiCarlo's dagger, which Peter was already stabbed with. And that's why the final dialogue from Damien was, "You have won nothing. The Antichrist is definitely not dead." So nothing is resolved. And I have to say, this effect, this Christ effect here at the end, is really well done. Maybe they saved their whole VFX budget to get this one right. And this is the first time in all three films where we actually see some real supernatural proof or visions of what the story is all about. And I think this film does kind of end abruptly. Nothing is explained or fulfilled here. With the figure holding Peter, and people were saying, is that Christ? No, it's DiCarlo, isn't it? He wasn't killed earlier, he was just throttled by Damien. He's still alive. So this is, I think, DiCarlo holding Peter. Peter's still alive. You can see him. Can you see him move there? Did his eyelids flicker? Or was that just bad acting? I'm not going to say it was, but I think he's still alive. He's resurrected. Something like that. Damien's dead, and this is DiCarlo, Peter, and Kate Reynolds. We just get the vision of Christ. He's not coming as a person. So, a very interesting film. Creates a lot of talking points, doesn't it? And surely that's the mark of a good film, where, you know, when it ends, you start to think about things. So it's not all bad. I wouldn't say this is a bad film. It's definitely not as good as the first two. In those reviews, I gave them both 5 stars. I like them both for very different reasons. I think the first film definitely is the better one, but I did really like the second as well. I think there was a lot covered there, which I think the way they did it was really good. And also, I didn't really say much about Jerry Goldsmith's music. He's gone for quite a significant change here. There's a lot more choral and choir music, which I think fits in. In the last two, there was a lot of demonic chanting, which sounds amazing. It was really hammering home the threat. But rather than repeat himself with the same motifs and cues, he's gone for something a lot more of a tragedy, that this person is, and evil is eventually taking a back seat and being overcome by the biblical forces of good. And us film fans, we're all fans of the great Jerry Goldsmith. His music always nails it. So let's give this an overall score. I'm going to go with an above average score of 3 stars. I couldn't give it 1 or 2 like some other reviewers have. So let's also quickly touch on the various sequels that these films spawned. I've been told quite a few times by some of you guys that a 4th film does exist, because I've often referred to this being a trilogy. And yes, I'm aware that there's an Omen 4. Fox were trying to initiate a film series based on a second attempt by the Beast. I have seen it in part. It was on TV and I think we just got bored. A lot of the supposed scary parts were just becoming really silly and really poorly acted. So I will not be following these reviews with Omen 4. The channel's going to have a little Omen break. Who knows, I may revisit it in the future sometimes. So I couldn't tell you what review is coming next, because even I don't know. But I can tell you what it won't be. It won't be Omen 4. So let's also address the elephant in the room, which is the 2006 remake. I have seen it. It really followed the original script, but I just didn't see the point of it. And the visual effects in places, especially with the priest being impaled in the churchyard, just looked really strange to me. So I won't be rewatching that for a while either. And also there was a short-lived TV series called Damien, which came out in 2016. I never knew about it. I've never seen it. But it got cancelled after 1 season. I have seen some discussion online that it was quite promising in places, but I couldn't catch an audience. Also in the works, there's rumours of a prequel, which a couple of my viewers kindly tipped me off on. Thanks a lot, guys. I never knew about this. I have looked into it, and maybe if they cover the formation of the crew to accept the Antichrist's birth, and let's see how that develops. So let's end this video there. What a fantastic trilogy of films. Even though the 3rd is the weakest for me, I think we got a fairly decent conclusion. So thanks again to you all for joining me, and I'd love for you to join me again soon for next time, which won't be Omen 4. Like and subscribe and all that jazz. Speak to you soon. All the best to you. Take care.